Okay, we'll get going now. So welcome everyone to this Tableau Prep user group. Looks like there are a lot of people dialing in from the US and also lots of new attendees, which is nice to see. So we're just going to go through a few housekeeping things for the session for those that haven't been before, and then we'll get going with the speakers. So just a little bit about me. So I'm a data school consultant at the Information Lab in London. I set up this user group back in February this year as a way to just share wider usage of Tableau Prep and explore some interesting use cases of the tool. A lot of user groups I've attended myself tend to focus more on Tableau Desktop, so I thought it'd be quite nice to give Prep its own space and see how we can watch the tool develop over time. If you want to reach out to me after the session or connect with me in any way, you can see my Twitter there and LinkedIn. And that's also my blog at the bottom. Something I'd like to highlight that is one of the ways that I use Tableau Prep other than in my day job is Prepping Data, which is a community-run scheme that's led by Carl, who is speaking for us today. I'm sure he will tell you more about that, but essentially there's a challenge posted each week. You'll submit a solution and you'll get the answer or an ideal solution the following week. And obviously there's many different ways that you can go about things in a tool like Tableau Prep, but I'll let Carl explain that to you. Just some other points about the session. There will be the opportunity to ask some of the speakers some questions. So if you have those, can you please submit them in the Q&A box and not in the general chat? We won't be picking up questions from there. So if you've got any questions for the speakers, pick them up in the Q&A. The session will be recorded. I can see that coming in the chat, and it will be posted on Tableau's YouTube page, probably tomorrow, I would have thought. But you'll be emailed a link after the session, so you can come back to it or you can share it with your wider teams or whatever. So what else do we have? So something else that is a great way to get involved with learning Tableau Prep is these Thursday training at 3 sessions that the Information Lab run. So these are free online training sessions that run, funnily enough, on Thursdays at 3 o'clock. That is UK time, so I appreciate that for some of you out on the west coast of the US, that's very early in the morning. But I don't know, some people might like to start their way with some Tableau Prep bright and early at 7 a.m. If that is you and you're interested in the sessions, there's a beginner Tableau Prep this Thursday, and then there'll be a follow-up session which will build on that and be a slightly more intermediate level on next Thursday. You can sign up to the meetup page on that top link, the Let's Talk Data, and then the link below will take you to the Eventbrite page to sign up to the session on Thursday. I can also send that out after the event or put it in the chat so people can pick that up rather than just screenshotting or whatever you may be doing to the screen. Final thing from me is that you may have also seen with this session, we've got a free giveaway of Carl's upcoming book. The book's not released yet. It will be out on the 30th of September, but the publishing company have offered to give away 5 free copies to attendees of this session. I've seen some of the content for the book and it really is a great learning guide for Tableau Prep. I think it's going to be a great purchase if you are interested in getting it and you're unfortunate to not win one today. To enter, you need to email Quokka, which is the name of the cute little animal on the front, to my email address in the subject line, and we'll pick 5 winners from random at random. You'll see also that I've got a point here that if you're inside the US, you'll receive a physical copy of the book. And if you're outside, this will be an ebook. That's just to do with the distribution. So on to the sessions. So you've had your intro from me rambling on. We've got Sarah, Carl, and Brittany today who have got some really interesting talks. I'm just going to get them to introduce themselves to you, and then we will crack on with Sarah. So we'll go in reverse order from here. So Brittany, if you want to go first, and then we can finish up with Sarah and she can present her session.
Cool. So am I just doing an intro? Sorry.
Yeah, just a little intro to yourself.
Okay. All right, so I'm Brittany. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and I organize the DC Tableau user group. And I started with prep when it was still in beta, not really doing a whole lot. And then within the past year, I've gotten a lot more into it. Happy to be here.
Okay, I'm Carl. So I'm lucky enough to be the other head coach at the data school, teaching brilliant people like Jack and Jenny and Tom who help out on prep and data. And yeah, I dug into prep also in that beta, but I never really used it too heavily until we started teaching it more at the data school. And then questions started coming in, I started answering those, and that's really where prep and data and the book actually started as well. So it's kind of when you kind of start to use an anger, that's where tools like prep, I think, really come into their own. So that's a little bit of what I'm going to take you through today as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Sarah. I'm also from the Washington, D.C. area. I'm pretty new to Tableau Prep. I just started working in it this past, I would say June. So it's still a learning curve for me, but I'm excited to be here today presenting to everyone.
Great, thanks everyone. So Sarah, I will let you take control of the screen. I think if you just start sharing, you should just steal it from me, and we can get going.
Okay, so can everyone see my screen okay? All right, so today I'm presenting on an issue that I think is pretty common when it comes to cleaning data and preparing it, especially when it comes to SharePoint and Excel data, where there's multiple delimiter separated values stuffed into a single cell, and you want to bust them out and bring all the corresponding data into the separate rows with it. So we're going to talk about that today. Just a little more about me and my background. I'm currently in my last semester as a master's student at Georgetown University studying math and statistics. And I'm also currently a data scientist at Apogee Integration, also located in the Northern Virginia, DC area. So a little bit of background on the issue. As you can see with this data set here, the person IDs kind of have all these values stuffed in here. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to get the data to be in this format and keep all corresponding, well, break each delimiter separated value into its own row and then keep the corresponding data with it when that happens. So currently there is really no easy way to do this in Tableau Prep or Tableau. The Fleur-Lage twins have come up with a solution. They have a really interesting blog article about it. The problem with their solution is that it is pretty time consuming and it does require a lot of steps. So if you had to do this for multiple columns or multiple different data sets, it would take quite a long time. The solution is also a bit cumbersome because you'd have to pick a hard-coded number of values, and any amount of values in each cell that breaks that hard-coded limit will just be silently dropped without the user knowing. So that can cause a huge problem with data loss. And as I said before, this format of data is very common, especially when you're bringing over SharePoint data. So I have written two scripts, one in Python and one in R, that can be deployed via TabPy or RServe server in Tableau Prep. For those of you who aren't familiar, this just is something that Tableau Prep has allowed users to do to implement a little bit more difficult functionality to Tableau Prep, that and kind of more unique solutions, more catered to the user and what their needs are. So I have written 2 scripts, one for R and one for Python, that we can deploy using either TabPy or RServe server. So it's really, they both do pretty much the same. They both do the same thing. So it's up to you what you're more comfortable with or what you would rather use to deploy it. I personally usually use the TabPy one, but that's just, like I said, a personal decision. So the Python script uses Panda's explode function, and the R script uses csplit, which are both just functionalities that allow you to break single cells that are delimiter separated into their own rows. The one main problem with this is that Tableau Prep currently doesn't support argument input by the users. So if you do implement a script, there's nowhere to actually tell them which column you're referring to. You have to already have that written in the script. So to kind of work around this, we just, I decided to have it so that you would just have to rename the column that you want to have separated to be exactly values. And then you just have to add the word key to any other column that you want to be included into the output. Also, you can't tell Tableau Prep whether the delimiter is a comma, a semicolon, etc. So you could replace it using current functionality in Tableau Prep if it's not a comma, because the scripts are currently written to support commas, since I feel like that's the most common. Another kind of quirky thing I ran into while doing this was that I found that when you get to Tableau Prep, it tells you that you need a get output schema function. And I believe in Tableau Prep, it's written like this, but you have to know that if you are writing a Python script, the get output schema needs to be written with underscores. So that's something that currently Tableau Prep is working on getting fixed, because it's printed wrong in the user interface. So we're going to go through an example, but just a quick overview to set up this flow. It's pretty easy. You just connect to your data. And then, like I said, you do have to rename the columns because we don't have that argument input option. So you just want to make sure that your column that you're splitting out has the name values. Then you can add a script step that will input your script. Then you want to select your server of whether you're using your Python script or your R script. And then you can browse for the .py or .r file that consists of your function. And then you just type in the name of the function and hit enter, and it will output your desired results. Then obviously, just for cleanliness, you can add another step to replace the original column names, because right now you have temporary column names of key, blank, and values. Then you can just add an output step and export it, and then you can bring it into Tableau and do whatever you need to do with it. So let's go over to the sharing Tableau Prep. Okay, so we have a sample data set here. Let's add a clean step so we can see what we're working with. So you see we have multiple person IDs stuffed into single cells here, and we want to break them out. So we want to call this column, we're going to rename this column to be values. And let's say I want to bring their birthplace with them in the output, so I'm going to add key to that. And let's say I also want their country ID, so I'm going to add key to the front of that. Now we're good to go. We can add this script into the Tableau Prep flow. So we're going to add a script step. I'm going to do this through Tableau because I already have the server set up on my computer currently. But like I said, there is an RServe option. So now we're connected to the TabPy server. I am going to grab my .py file, which has the script in it. And then of course I'm going to enter the function name, hit enter, and now you have very quickly all your new columns or all your values broken out into their own rows. So then we can add another clean step. I can rename this person ID, rename this birthplace, rename this country ID, and then we are done. So we can add our output step. So it's just that easy. Pretty much all the work is done for the user in this. That's the really good thing about this solution. Now I'm going to go back and finish my slides. So the benefits to this approach, which I think I've already kind of touched on most of them, is that the results are quick and accurate. So this is a very effective solution for something that I think is very common to, a very common problem that data scientists run into on pretty much on the regular. Another benefit is that there's not a hard-coded set limit. So you could put a cell of up to, I've tried up to 10,000 values, and it will execute immediately. So it's really nice that all the work is done for the user. Like I said, the Florlage twins have a solution that works, but it does take a lot of workarounds and a lot of those quirky steps from like a typical Tableau solution. So this is kind of a more concrete way to do things. Something that could make this solution and many other scripts even more useful is if Tableau Prep allowed users to pass arguments. So there is currently a community forum trying to get this on Tableau's radar. So if you are interested or you do have run into this problem or see the functionality it could give, you could go and upvote that because we're just trying to draw more attention to it for Tableau. But other than that, I think that is it. I think questions are in the Q&A, so I'll check that in a second. But other than that, thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Sarah. That's like, I come across that so much, and I think many people do, and it's where Tableau Prep often reaches one of its limits, other than if you go down a solution like you have with the scripting tool. So it's really interesting to see that, and nice to see that you've done it in in Python and R. So there's some questions for you. Is there any particular reason you prefer using Python to R in Tableau Prep, or just generally?
Honestly, no, just comfortability, really. I've just done a lot more in Python in the past. There's nothing really that I see, like there's no real benefit of one or the other. I'm happy to use either. I feel like I'm just personally faster in Python.
Fair enough. Have you worked on any similar scripts for breaking down XML into columns? I know that's pushing Python a bit further.
I have not. I have a command line script, but that's pretty much to the extent.
Fair enough. So I'm not going to ask you to give a full demonstration here because it takes time, but someone's asking how TabPy is set up. I know that it's actually quite a straightforward process. Do you reckon you could give a high-level overview of the steps involved?
Yeah, definitely. So I prefer to do it through, if you actually download TabPy, you can go through to your applications, and then I set it up using the command line. I do have like in detailed instructions that I can share with everyone that are actually written out, and the information lab does too. So I'll share those with everyone, and then that will save me some
Okay, yeah, that would be great. If you could
time.
if you have that to hand now and you could put that in the chat, that would be really helpful. Or if
Yep,
not, we can just
absolutely.
share it via email
Yep,
after the session.
I'll put that out there right now.
Perfect, thanks. And then one final question from Jenny. Could you explain again why you prefer this method versus split and pivot in prep?
So split and pivot doesn't actually put them into their own row with all the corresponding data, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It does.
Perfect.
It should do. I think there's just the limitation on the actual number of values you can potentially split, because I've never tried to do 10,000, but I'm guessing I might have some issues if I do. So I haven't actually found that limit yet. But yes, you will be able to do the split and pivot, and it'll keep all of the relevant keys with it, as you've kind of detailed. But yeah, it's the size of that data would I think be the limitation there.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for presenting and thanks for answering those questions. It's really interesting. So up next, Carl. So do you want to take over, present your screen?
Yeah, sorry, I was busily answering loads of questions in the chat. If you are putting questions in the chat, feel free to lob them into the Q&A, and it's just a little bit easier for us to go and keep track of them. So hopefully that helps and makes life a little bit easier. Yes. Yes, let me go and share my screen and jump into PowerPoint. So today's session is a bit different for me because I don't normally like to use PowerPoint. If you've ever been on any of the presentations for the data school, you'll know I kind of ridicule the guys a little bit if you've just done something in PowerPoint, but today I'm doing that because I thought we'd kind of take a step back, and Brit's session following this will go further, but we'll spend a bit of time first of all looking at really what prep is. Just I know it's a few people's first time on the user group. I thought that would be the case. I'm really glad you are here to validate that. But then off the back of that, we'll dive into really where people are going to be using prep, where they're not using prep at the moment, because I've not really found any organization yet, if you know of it, please let me know, where we've kind of really just dropped in prep and then everybody start to use it. So that question, just almost like we have with Tableau Desktop, really good benefits are being found by using the software, but it hasn't rolled out to everybody yet. So what's stopping us from doing that? And that's really what I wanted to explore with this talk today. And again, just kind of taking a moment to marvel in Sarah's brilliance with the depth of the coding. This session won't be as hands-on and won't have those kind of examples. But hopefully you'll then go and start to work out where you could use prep based on some of that technicality, as well as where this session will go through. So what are we going to dive into? Yeah, what is prep? But also talk about this term that I wrote about quite a lot in the book of self-service data preparation. What do I mean by that? And actually, why should you care? So hopefully I can win you over onto my bandwagon with that one. Also, why do we want to use Tableau Prep? But also, why not? So what's that kind of borderline is a question I kind of get asked quite a lot of what should I use prep for, and also what should I not use it for? But then that also flows into the who should be using prep and who shouldn't be using prep. And it's not necessarily who shouldn't be using prep, but it's who is it not perfect for? Where are there some better options out there? So for the moment, with the way the tool's been developed, yeah, there's some other options out there. So if you are brand new, we'll just kind of spend just a minute at the end just to talk about how to get started. And I'll talk about some of the ways into the subject. So who am I? I did title the slide as "Who's this?" but then I thought you might think I was the actual talking quokka, but thankfully I'm on video today, so that's not the case. I am Carl. I'm the other head coach at the data school in London. My background before that was years as a BI manager and a consultant as well, focused on Tableau and Alteryx. And that's normally kind of a good comparison between data preparation tools is, what should I use, prep or Alteryx? You can dive into that in the Q&A if you want to. But really it's about driving that empowerment for users, whether that's on the visualization side with Tableau Desktop, or whether it's on the data preparation side with Tableau Prep or Alteryx. That's pretty much been my full-time job now for 6 years, really focusing on that last part. I was very lucky this year to get nominated and as a Tableau Zen Master. So I've been, working away on Tableau for nearly 10 years now on the software, using it pretty much every single day. So I've been recognized as a social ambassador for a long time, but it was the first time of finally hitting that mark as a Zen Master, which was, just a massive thank you for anybody who did nominate me. It's very humbling to say the least. And that's where imposter syndrome starts kicking in when you look around the room or virtual room, as the case may be at the moment, and see who else is around the table. One thing that was planned even before the Zen Master-ness was writing this book. So Tableau Prep up and running. Really the aim of the book is diving into the subject of how do you get started with data preparation? Because it's something I constantly see as a consultant, and with all the clients we work with, it's people feel more comfortable these days with working with self-service data visualization, but they don't feel the same way about data preparation. So I wanted to write something that people could refer to and give them some confidence to really dive into this space and start using the tools and the potential time savings and benefits that can be found within there, part of what we're going to go through in the talk today. So let's just take one step back for a minute. What is Tableau Prep? You're at a Prep user group, so I assume many of you will know. So just bear with me just a couple of moments just while I explain it, just in case people aren't quite as familiar with the tool. There's actually two tools, and when we refer to this thing called Tableau Prep, originally there was just one called Tableau Prep. It's what we now know as Tableau Prep Builder. It's the piece that sits on our computer, what we'll go and connect to data and then produce an output from. Think of it very much like Tableau Desktop. I'm going to go and connect to a data source and then actually going to go and produce either the insight or share something on Tableau Server or a line off the back of it. With Prep Builder, what we're doing is we're still connecting to that data. This is probably messy data. What we're producing off the back of it is that clean output file or files that's then ready for analysis. Tableau Prep Conductor, I just mentioned it on the chat, is the server-based component of Prep. It's what sits there and actually does the scheduling of our flows. So once I've built a flow, I can schedule it to happen every single 15 minutes, every day, whatever schedules you have available on your server instance. But also it allows me to do a lot of error checking and will flag up, just like you get extracts refreshes being flagged up on the server, saying I've got issues and I want to pay attention to it. So they're the two components of Tableau Prep. Tableau Prep Builder comes with the creator license. Tableau Prep Conductor is a data management add-on to the server. The original Prep tool was released in April 2018, but it's a little bit different from desktop. Because it's a newer tool, we've seen a monthly release schedule, and those Tableau devs have been working really hard. So big shout out to Zahira, Rahim, Meraki, all of the team who do an amazing job on producing some great functionality, especially at the speed they've done it. But I think that's one thing to kind of reflect on with Prep, that it is still quite a new tool. It is still developing. And again, we'll touch on some of those points as we go through. The tool is really focused on taking away lots of that kind of repeated menial manual effort that we had with producing data sets before. I know lots of organizations still live and breathe Excel every single day. That has a lot of great data in, but actually to go and turn that into something that will work nicely with Tableau, it's quite hard. It's going to go and take that time to go and work your way through and do the cleaning. And then when you realize that data is valuable, you then need to go and do it again and again and again. And that's tough. That's kind of soul destroying for many people. Like I say, I used to run a team of 15. They spent a lot of time doing this. That's not cool. That's not a great job for them. I want them to be spending time with the business, working on how they can use their data skills to solve these unique, different challenges. It's more interesting for them. So if we can go and automate this thing that is just the data preparation side of the job, fantastic. Let's go and do that as much as we can. There's kind of the classic consulting adage that what's the split between data prep time and the actual analysis? Well, we say 80-20. 80% of the time for most of the engagements we spend working on is about the preparation side of things. That is not great use of time. It's much better if we can go and switch that, because then we're going to go and find much better insight within our visualizations and analysis. And that means that we're going to see a much bigger return and reward for using and learning the tool. But what I do love about Prep is it's taken Tableau's user focus. You'll notice that most things in desktop are just a couple of clicks. I've gone and taken that focus and applied it to these data preparation tasks. So really having that ease of use has really changed who suddenly is available to do this thing that I'm calling self-service data preparation. And it's that self-service data preparation is, like I say, something that is just kind of new. I think we've spoken about it and thought about it before, but it's not something that anyone's really grasped and tried to run with. Self-service data visualization, I remember at the start of my career, I'm sounding quite old now, but this is actually, it wasn't that long ago, when reporting was definitely a function of IT. You wouldn't have people sitting in the business doing their own work in this kind of way. And that's really sad, because I was part of those business teams. I wanted to use data, but I didn't always have access to. I wanted to be able to go and use my subject matter expertise to answer the questions in front of me. That kind of sucks when I can't do that. I feel restricted. It takes time, it takes effort to go and make those requests, when actually I just want the answers now, because as soon as I get that answer, I'm going to have more questions, and I don't know what those next questions are until I've actually even answered this one. So to create that beneficial cycle, to get that moving, we gave the power of data visualization, and Tableau was really the tool for me that drove that more than any other out there, to the user. But we won't do the same with data preparation, it seems, at the moment. We're worried about lack of skills. We're worried about what somebody might do with data. They are exactly the same conversations that I had when self-service data visualization through Tableau Desktop was growing. I had those conversations every single day. I'm now having those conversations about self-service data preparation every day. So I'm basically saying two things. One, this isn't a unique challenge of what we're going through at the moment. It's actually very similar to what we found before. But secondly, it's actually a pretty good horse to back. If you're really looking to make big strides forward in your organization and get it more driven by data, actually enabling data preparations through a self-serve model more is actually a great way to get there. Because we're decentralizing the function. It's not to say that central functions don't have a role. I completely agree that they do, but it's allowing those users to get to their own questions faster. At the end of the day, they're the experts. When I was at Barclays, we had a Tableau team of 3 people. We were supporting 130,000. I did not know the 129,997 other people's jobs better than they did. But what I could do was I could empower their decisions with the data visualization solutions I was giving. If we could empower them to use their own data sets, that becomes even better for what they can actually then go and answer and improve in terms of the services. But where do we kind of sit with Tableau Prep? So yes, it's self-service data visualization is a great way to go. Why should we actually use this thing called Tableau Prep? So in there, I'm wrapping together Builder and Conductor. Well, it's actually built for the task. It's designed to go and allow you as a user to go and work with your own data sets. Either go and take messy data and clean up, go and take multiple data sources and amalgamate them together, all in this really kind of user-driven focused way. So it is actually code light, just like Tableau Desktop. Apart from calculations, we pretty much have a method where we can often go and drag and drop to go and get the solutions we want. With the script tool within Prep, it does let us go further, as Sarah demonstrated earlier, but it is intentionally code light and code free. So we're trying to make that as easy as possible as a tool and find those solutions to do that. I'll mention Prep and Data in a little bit, but we've intentionally got some of the challenges, and Jenny demonstrated one of such challenges on one of the early virtual Prep user groups, where we just do quite a lot of work with just a few clicks, which is amazing to see. And again, it's great that the tool can handle that. What Prep does is also allows us to think about those visualizations. We'll see the little excerpt I've got here from the profile pane, but we're seeing a histogram that happens in the background when we work with our data. We see how many of those values we have. We see the outliers. We see the issue here. Actually, I'm missing some data in March and I'm missing some data from England. Guess I know which sales numbers I need to go and pick it up. So it's using the traits that we all believe in if we're using Tableau Desktop, that we can go and communicate data better through visualization. Well, we're using that within a data preparation sense now. And that's huge. I had access to hundreds of thousands of tables at Barclays in the retail space. And lots of that was pretty much undocumented. There's no way you can control those many tables. There's lots of system outputs, etc. But for me to go and find the useful data within there, what I actually needed to do was go and actually build things like these histograms, see what was in the data, see what wasn't in the data. Have I got the same number of rows as I would, or records as I would expect for each value? Tableau Prep's doing that for me. That's why that's the bit that I saw in the beta, where it's like, yes, this is a tool that's going to help me a lot. So to see that stick in the full version of the product, it's massively empowering and kind of great just to be able to get my hands wrapped around that and start using it. And what that naturally leads to is a tool that's actually really good at iteration. I can go and deconstruct bits of flows, I can copy and paste them between workflows, reconnect whenever I need to. But also I can go and add in new data sets when I want to, go and join them into any part of the flow. I'm not stuck by I have to load data first and then, that's what I've got to do, that's all I have access to as I work my way through. That iterative process within Prep is super powerful. And it also allows for the last bit, the rapid development cycle. And that is where some of the central functions, I think, can come back into play in a really useful way. Firstly, as I go and build something within Prep, what I actually have the ability to and access to is I can go and show somebody the flow, and using the iconography, it takes moments to go and explain what I'm actually trying to do. If I did that as I have done in SQL code and 40 odd pages of SQL code before, if you drop it into a Word document, that's going to take so much longer to walk somebody through, even if you've documented that code with comments and everything else as well. Having almost a more pictorial view of that becomes super beneficial to be able to go and articulate it to central functions so they can go and productionize reports, check what's going on, potentially even turn it into a code-based solution if you know that you're going to go and use something a lot more widely and more rapidly. I'm not saying Prep can't do that. I just know that that's something that I don't think should be frowned upon and can definitely find its place in most organizations. But why would we not use Tableau Prep? And also, kind of, how do we work around some of these challenges? The first point is a big one for me, and it's why we created Prep and Data. Jonathan Allenby, off the back of a Prep training session at the Data School, turned to me and said, are there any challenges in the Tableau space to go and learn Tableau Prep as a tool? And there weren't. So it was a silly thing for him to say, because obviously my next statement was going to be, let's go and create one. He didn't see that coming. I'm glad we've got 80 odd challenges out there now. But because preparation is very much more something that's not done by everybody, what we found is it's actually quite a hard skill set to set up. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. It's why I wrote a lot of the how-to posts on prepanddata.com. That's the new website, by the way. We're moving over slowly from Blogspot, so go and get a sneak peek at the new website if you want to use prepanddata.com. And I'm slowly adding the how-to post there. But it's also about letting people go and grow and develop that skill set. That doesn't happen easily within the workplace. And like I say, that's why we're trying to create this community initiative. But Tom Prowse and Jenny Martin, even Jack submitted a few challenges along the way too, help out massively to go and share that learning and give that space for somebody to go and learn and grow. Also, another reason to not use Prep, and this is the fear of self-service data preparation more generally, so not just Prep, is that we'll suddenly have thousands upon millions of data sets kicking around our organization, and which ones are those ones to use? Again, that's where our central teams come in. Having some governance around this, having spaces where there's sandpits, we can go and play, explore, and kind of grow our skills, all the way through to here's the production environment. There are golden sources of data. They're authorized, they're authenticated. We're seeing that play into the Tableau server space a lot more now. But having that opportunity to do that is huge. But you never get to a really good use of data if you're not giving somebody that play space in the first place. So although the proliferation of data sources is something that you definitely want to manage, for me, it's not a reason not to do this. And also, Prep is still in development. As I've mentioned, it's still building some of those functions that we want. We saw Sarah's example earlier is a great one. I want to have confidence that I could go and split 10,000 values and actually get that in each of my rows. When Split first came into Prep, we actually found limits of up to about 20 columns within that. That's now been removed, but it's still quite a young tool. There's also some functions that haven't been developed that you might want. I think my big kind of challenge back to you is tell us. It's great to see Sarah using the forum idea there of let's go and get those elements into the scripting tool to go and build what we need to make life easy for people. But the same for the rest of the tool as well. If there's common things that you find that you need to be able to do in your data prep, and I know of a few with Prep, I'm challenging the devs, and we all should, on, hey, this is what we want to see and why. They're very good, like I say, with a monthly schedule to get quite a lot of those built in. So that's like why we should and why maybe we won't or potentially might not use the tool. But how does that play into the human side of this? Because at the end of the day, the human side is that self-service data preparation part. who should be using Prep? I've got three main examples. The first one is not surprise. It's my old world, it's those reporting analysts. Because not everybody has the skills that were seen from Sarah, or the skills I've spoken about in terms of SQL coding. I got to go and hide away in a dark corner for about 2 days to go and teach myself SQL. I'm a history and politics student, so I know what life is like without that skill, but also what it's like with it. But there's many people who don't have the opportunity to do that. To go and let somebody work with their own data sets, or go and work with data sets they've never had the chance to before and prepare them themselves, is a strong enabler. Going back to my arguments earlier around that. So actually allowing kind of reporting analysts, who not all of them can code and have the ability to do the data preparation in a coded way, is a real strong part. If they're already using Tableau Desktop, then they're likely to be on the creator license to get Prep for free. Why not empower them to go and start exploring what they can do to go and build out that skill set further and just actually find more within their own analysis? The profile pane, visual join results. I've got a session at the Tableau conference-ish coming up soon, where I go through some of the hints and tips. And these are some of the elements within Prep that hopefully people are finding to help them prevent errors, find quicker ways of working, understanding what's going on within their data. But there's many elements, but the profile pane and the visual join results for me is one that has meant I've saved myself from accidentally doing errors that I really shouldn't be doing. But, you know, we're all human. That's a terrible phrase, I know. We should hold ourselves to better account. But, you know, if we've got our tool that helps us go and find where those errors are, that's a great place to go. And Tableau Prep is really it within the data preparation space for me. And it's also easy to hand over those flows, like I was saying, hand back to a team to go and productionalize the flow or turn it into a code-based solution. That's really powerful when you can go and pass back a workflow that just makes sense to somebody. You can chat it through rather than writing a horrendous Word document or, God forbid, even more PowerPoint slides. But also, I think another kind of group of people within most organizations that I've worked in that would really benefit from using Prep is actually the market research team. So those market researchers, they have a really tough job in terms of getting data from loads of different places that you need to kind of just go and smush all together somehow. You know, survey data, first and foremost, is never, ever, ever. Steve Wexler will probably agree, hopefully he agrees, the king of survey data. It's never in the form that you want it, let alone when it's coming from multiple sources and disparate sources. So if you need to go and tie those bits of market research together, you need a tool that's going to allow you to be able to pick up that data and start working your way through with that. So actually working with Tableau Prep could definitely do that. And again, it's code free or code light if you're just doing calculations. So that makes life so much easier. It's that drag and dropness, easy repeatable steps will allow people to get to their answers a lot sooner and tie lots of this research together. And also business analysts. And by business analyst, I mean someone who's often looking for process improvement, not necessarily a data-driven business analyst, although lots of business analysts are. They will get data sets from all over the place. To be able to go and teach them one skill set for combining those data sets together is really useful. Prep would be a great tool for that. Having that ability to go and show what's on your screen, just like we do with Tableau Desktop to people to help them understand, having that within a data preparation tool like Prep will help. Prep and Data Challenge in 2019, week 4, was a challenge where we intentionally provoked people to say, don't output it into Tableau. Go and find your answers from that data set by using the tool. Use the profile pane, use the highlighting. And that's really where I could see a lot of business analysts making use of Prep within organizations to go and start sharing that learning and build their own understanding of the subject, but also what they're finding in the data by talking people through what they're finding. And having that iterative output through previewing in desktop by right-clicking on the clean steps, for example, as you go through your flow, that will enable people just to go and just work with the data and understand what they want and what they don't want. That's quite hard for business analysts when you're finding things that nobody's ever thought about before. So having that chance to preview and work with a data set and seeing whether it's right is a massive benefit. But who might not fit this model quite so well? Well, in my eyes, spatial specialists, so the mapping geeks of the world, might not love Prep quite so much. Great for preparing the data before, but we're missing some of that key functionality that we see in some of those other preparation tools. Spatial functions and spatial joins aren't available within Prep at the moment. We don't have this ability to kind of do iterative, spatial-based calculations and logic, like working out whose trade area should cover what area. You know, let's go and find everybody to have the same 1,000 customers. What area should I actually go and cover? How do we do those optimization work? That's not possible within PrEP at the moment. But also one fundamental piece when we talk about seeing the data is actually, how do you see the data on a map? Well, you can't within PrEP. We see a row-based or a record-based account of what's going on within the data set within PrEP, but we don't see something that's mapped. So actually previewing in desktop would be a way around that, but it is that slightly disjointed step from something that is so normally flowing as we prepare data. And the other end of this kind of data preparation spectrum, the predictive data science part of the world. You know, if you're using R and Python, although Sarah's demonstrated some kind of neat uses of PrEP to kind of go and make some of those steps quicker, rather than having to code it all from scratch, is that not everybody's able to do that. But also the predictive data science part is harder. Not having those predictive functions in place within PrEP, and also not having that kind of iterative improvements loops, for example, not having those within PrEP natively without having to use the scripting tool, means that we can't do some of those elements that we might want to get stuck in. Again, there are other tools out there for that. We have the scripting step that opens up the door for that, but it's not quite as easy as everything else that's actually within the tool. So, in conclusion, hopefully I've won you over to, there are more people in your organization who could really benefit from PrEP. There's probably a lot of licenses that are already around from Tableau desktop users and creators who could actually go and start using PrEP today. There's a lot of reasons why they should, a lot of time saving that could be had there. How would you get them started? There's a great starter kit on Tableau's website, or learning through the Tableau videos as I did originally with desktop back in, I can't even remember what year it was, the early 2010s. But then also, I'm going to make a shameless plug for the book. I've built Tableau PrEP up and running for exactly these users who are new to self-service data prep, because we're explaining concepts, not just how you do something within PrEP, that's covered too, all the way through to data management and a lot more kind of sophisticated stuff around databases. But that book is there to kind of really get people, as it says, up and running with Tableau PrEP and self-service data preparation. But then when you're ready, come and practice. PrepandData.com has a link through to the challenges, through to our old site at the moment, but we're in the process of migrating that over. Lots of the how-to blog articles as well, which will keep up to date with all the latest features coming through. But really, it's a place to everyone to come and grow and learn over time. That's what we're intending it to be. If you're missing something, if you want to see something on there, let us know. And Jenny, Tom, and myself will be happy to dive into that. So thank you for me. And then I'm going to open it up to questions, because I'm guessing there's a few controversial things that I've said, and intrigued to see what you all think of it.
Thank you so much, Carl. That's really interesting talk. And I totally agree. There's definitely way more people out there that could be and should be using Tableau PrEP across the number of different industries that I've worked in and come across. There are a few questions for you. I mean, we're not going to get through all of them, but there are some. So the first one, why would someone use Tableau PrEP instead of SSIS, SQL Server Integration?
Yeah, for me, it's PrEP is that tool where it's a little bit easier for people to pick up and use. SSIS has obviously been around for a long time, and lots of people do make a good amount of benefit for it. But it's just that bit that's harder to get there. PrEP has bubbled down data prep just in the same way that Marks card did. So a few simple cards of how do I change this mark on the page and build my charts off the back of it. PrEP's bubbled down data preparation to just 7 or 8 different steps. That's made it super easy for people just to get going with the tool and start working with it. So it's not a scary thing. I think if you gave somebody SSIS, that you're not going to get that same forward step that you'll get from somebody who's actually using PrEP within that. Again, both take a little bit of training. I think PrEP is a lot less to get people up and going. Is there a longer term space for something in more of a specialist tool? Absolutely. But you could also stay with PrEP for a very long time within that space.
Thank you. So something that came up with one of your slides. As a reporting analyst, how strongly do you recommend learning SQL/Python for Tableau? I've been using Live SQL Connections as my primary data source.
Yeah, if you've got data in SQL, then I would definitely learn SQL. It's really beneficial. I think having a tool like Prep takes the pressure off a bit because you'll be able to do lots of the things that you can't currently do in desktop. And actually, we're intentionally taking out desktop to make it an easy to use tool and take that chance to go and step back and get the work done while you're kind of learning SQL on the side. And slowly your SQL skills will develop over time. Maybe your SQL skills will develop really quickly over time, and I'm underplaying your skills. But you want to go and build your confidence with that. So I definitely do that. For me, where Python comes in, it's that more unstructured data that's out there. Python's such a flexible language that you don't even need the data in the database to begin with. You're going to go and pick it up from elsewhere. Again, a massively important part of self-service data preparation is I'm adding in different data sources than what I've ever had into my tool and kit bag before, which allows me to add additional context or go and answer questions that I didn't even really knew I had before I'd started the work. So both of them are super useful, in my opinion. There's probably a lot smarter people than I for recommending which one of those two you should take first and why.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for that. So this question from Josh, which is actually quite an interesting idea, and I don't know the answer. So in terms of validating an output from Tableau Prep, can you export the changes in each of the steps as some kind of file?
Not that I know of. That's an awesome question. Almost as a self-documenting tool, really we want people going into the tool to use it, but is that always possible? No. Is it hidden in the background of the files? I've not found it within Prep yet, but I haven't played too deeply with those, so maybe it is. Really interesting idea to drop onto the ideas forum, because I could see a lot of people finding that super useful. I can almost feel the rest of the Prep and Data crew going, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So please drop that idea, Josh, onto the ideas forum, because yeah, that could actually help quite a lot of people out. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Almost being able to output that information will be definitely beneficial in some use cases. And then finally, I know you speak to, sorry, just seen something. Speak to devs a lot. What would you like to see as the next big thing in Tableau Prep? We've obviously recently had write to database, which is a really powerful new feature, but what would be top of your wish list?
Something web-based for Prep. I think a big blocker in organizations is having that tool that you download, because you've got to go through the validation of it, make sure it doesn't affect anything unduly, basically what's called packaging, if you've come across that term before. But really what I'd love to see is if we have a web-based version of Prep that we could use, that would help open the door to a lot of people start learning and working with it. And maybe, just maybe, if I do a fingers cross and just say, Mr. Francois, can we please have Prep public? So people can go and start learning these skills a lot more. You know, Tableau has been great with helping people see and understand their data. Part of that is getting hold of that data in the first place. And I'd really love more people to get this opportunity to go and learn the data preparation skills within there. And I think having a free version of some kind, and if it's web-based, that would make that really simple. If that was available, I'd absolutely love that. So I'm just going to say please 3 more times, please, please, please. We'll see if Francois listened.
Yeah, I think that'd be really great, because especially with something like prepping data as well, you see people share solutions on Twitter or something like that, but you only really get screenshots, and of course you can ask them for the flow, but if there was almost like a public gallery and you can go in and see how different people have done stuff as you would with Tableau Desktop, I think that'd be really great.
I'm absolutely certain there's answers from Kate Brown, Donna Coles, Rosario, Mohammed, Michael, you know, it's so many people, Arsene, who regularly do the Prep challenges, that because we're just looking at screenshot, we miss some of the nuance of what they've done. They've probably done something really clever, and they're probably really annoyed at me, Jenny and Tom and Jonathan for always kind of missing this subtle thing of genius that they've done. But it's difficult to go and share that knowledge if we're not sharing those workflows. Tom, just quickly, Tom Prowse has created a space on the community forums on Tableau for Prep and Data. So if you do ever want to go and share those workflows, you can do that there. But I think having somewhere a little bit more visual to be able to go and see that without having to download all those files would be super useful. So I'll say please 1 more time and see if the good karma reigns in.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, we'll wrap that up there. So thank you so much for joining us and presenting.
Cool. Thanks, Jack.
We'll move on to Brittany. So, Britt, if you'd like to share your screen and take over.
Yep. All right. So Carl talked a lot about the different types of roles or different types of people that would be good for Tableau Prep. And I'm going to talk through an actual scenario of when I decided that it was time to use Prep. Oops. All right. So just a little bit about myself. Like I said earlier, I'm the organizer of the DC Tableau user group. And my full-time job is working as a consultant. So I have my own company, Bfung Data. And what I'm going to be walking through is going to be a scenario that I had with one of my clients. Also, I'm a Tableau ambassador, and I've done some work organizing a DC Data Plus Women group. All right, so setting the scene. This is going to be what happened. There's going to be some characters. There's going to be, like any good story, some conflict and some solutions. So like I said, a scenario with a client. So I had a client who had social media comments, and they wanted to create a dashboard highlighting their defined custom groups. And then me as a developer, I'm thinking through, all right, custom groups, there's some different ways that we can do that. Tableau Desktop, has grouping, like with the little paperclip icon. You can create calculated fields. And then if we need to, we also have the option of Tableau Prep. So this is a screenshot of some of their data. So basically every row in this data is going to be a comment. And then they had this topic text field where they had already put in some tags for each comment. So you can see like bus services, transportation, entertainment. That comment had to do with those different topics. And then of course there's some additional metadata that's just useful when you're trying to do some analysis. All right, so first I was going through the data. I said, okay, you want custom groups. They had more than these two, but just for simplicity, they had bus service and complaints. So usually when I'm creating these groups, they're going to be mutually exclusive, meaning that a row can only belong to one group. But in this case, that wasn't true. Once I started going through the data, I could see right here, this one that's highlighted, this comment was a complaint, and it was also about the bus service. So I can't do this mutually exclusive calculation because this row of data is going to fall into bus service, even though it's also a complaint. So that was my first way that I was going to go about this. So now I realize that that grouping isn't really going to work. And if I want to use a calculated field, I actually have to do multiple calculated fields. And then I still have the option of Tableau Prep, which I think we're going to get to. So here was my solution for the not mutually exclusive grouping calculations. So I had to break out each group now. So I have one calculation that's just going to pull all the bus service comments. And then I have one calculation that will pull all the complaints. It just gives it a 1 so that I can see, count up the number of comments. So you can see here, this is what happened once I made it. In Tableau Desktop, you can see I have measure values down here and then my measure names. So I can see that over here, there are different columns. It's not like there's one column that's saying this row belongs to bus service or complaints. There's actually separate columns for each one. Okay, so I thought that this was going to be a really good solution. They're able to see the comments that they want. But then they said, well, we want to be able to filter on these now, and I want to be able to see a combination of bus service and complaints, or just one or the other. So because these calculations made each column different, so I think that's this one, yeah. So because each calculation is a different column, I can't actually say I just want to see these columns. And here, this is what I would usually want to drag onto filters. So I would want a field or a column that goes down and tells me which group it goes into, and then drag that onto filters. But in this case, I couldn't do that. So that's when I decided, okay, now I have to use prep. So here is the flow. It's actually really simple. And it's going to be a little bit similar to what Sarah showed, but mine is like a super simplified version because there's only 2 groups in this case. So I'm going to go through this, but overview, I connect to the data. I created the calculations for the groups. I pivoted it, and then I did some cleaning, output it, and then put it into Tableau Desktop. So let's go into prep. All right, so I have prep here, and in this first window, I'm connecting to my data. So I'm actually just gonna rebuild this flow again in the same window. So I'm opening this data pane up, hitting the plus sign so I can go find my data. And I have it right here, prep demo data. I'm gonna click open. And then it's gonna show me here all of the different columns and then the little sample data. For this example, and there are multiple ways to do this, as there are many things in Tableau and prep. So in this example, I'm just gonna take the ID, which I put fake IDs in for, and then this topic text, which was that delimited field. And next, I'm gonna add a clean step. Just bear with it while it thinks about the data for a second. All right, so I just have my fake ID and then the topic text. And now I need to create the calculations for the different groups. So I'm gonna go back here so that I can actually copy it and not have to type in front of everybody. All right, so I clicked right here to create a calculated field. I'm gonna paste that in. Oops. Maybe just a little, okay. So I'm just looking for my topic text, and I'm looking to see if it contains the word bus service in it. And I'm just gonna name this guy bus service and hit save. So it's going through every topic text. It's looking to see if bus service exists, and then it's either giving it a true or a false or a none. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the other one. So create. This time it's gonna be complaint. Oops. And save. All right, so here, if I make this one a little bit bigger, so I can see it says true here because there's bus service. It's looking for complaint in the topic text, but there isn't any, so it's saying false. And then you can see there's a bunch of nulls down here because there is no topic text. After that, I need to pivot my data. So clicking on the plus sign, going down to pivot. And the 2 that I want to pivot over are going to be the calculations that we made. So I'm going to drag bus service and complaint over. All right. And here I can name this group. Basically, this is our custom groups. I'm actually going to do it in the next step when I clean. let's add a next step. It'll be easier to see. So adding a clean. All right, so here I can see it going across, changing this. This is gonna be group. And then here I have my values, and I actually only want the ones where it's a 1, because I don't really care if it's false and I don't care if it's null. So I'm gonna filter those out. I just right click, exclude. And then same thing with all of the falses, which are gonna be the zeros. Exclude. And now this column is just redundant. It only has a 1 in all of them. So I can hide this, or I guess remove. Okay. And now I'm gonna create an output and make this bigger so we can see. You can see where it says group bus service. All of these have bus service in them. And we get to the spot where it changes to complaints, and all of these have complaints in them. And then I output my file, which I'm not going to do since I already have one on my desktop. And now I'm going into Tableau Desktop. So I basically have one data source that has all of the original data. And then I have a data source that is just each comment ID and then the group that it belongs to. So now with the newer version of Tableau, I'm able to use noodles. So it doesn't matter now that a comment can belong to more than one group, because the noodles in Tableau Desktop, when I create the connection, are going to account for that. So if I click here, so you can see I'm doing, creating a noodle on this fake ID. And then down here, I've said that there's one value in the actual data, and then there can be many groups that it belongs to. And then from there, my data set will look like this. I've brought in the topic text and the group, and we can see that one that was causing the issue right here is now falling under bus service and complaints. All right, let me. So the rest of the presentation just gives you some screenshots of what I did. So we'll skip through those. But that is how I kind of got to the point of where I needed prep. So I would say you don't always have to go in with the intention of I'm going to use prep for this. There was kind of a workflow that led me to this point. And then that was when I decided I needed to use prep and how it was going to help depending on the scenario. So let's see if there are any questions.
Thanks, Brett. It's a really interesting use case when you should or maybe shouldn't use prep. There are a few questions for you. I'll start off with this one that's just come in. What is a noodle?
So a noodle is in the latest version of...
There's a couple of questions about the noodle, actually.
Yeah. So the noodle is what Tableau calls it. I don't know if either of you have a better way to explain it. It's like a join, but you're not actually
can I jump in?
Hard join.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like we had blending back in the old days. Blending's still there within the tool. So it's kind of like that, but a bit more visualized, so you can actually see what's going on a bit more. But yes, it is a bit of a hybrid between a blend and a join. I've heard many people describe it as black magic. So I think it's very easy to not explain it very clearly. I think as people go and use it more, we'll get some better definitions. But yeah, the closest I think of it is like a blend that's a bit easier to control.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks, Carl. Question referring to something you specifically did. from John. Is there a reason you didn't use the option to keep only one versus to exclude 0 and null? I'll assume no, but it may have been.
No. Yeah, I didn't really think about it that hard. Just kind of clicked and did.
Cool. And then a few others. I know Carl answered this in the Q&A, as in typed an answer live, but I always find it quite interesting to see people's takes on it as it comes up a lot. So have you got any general rules for calculations, whether you would do them in prep or in desktop?
I don't usually. That comes down to performance. Like, I'll try to do most stuff in desktop just because I'm usually handing off the workbook to someone because I'm a consultant. Like, I don't own that workbook. So it's one less place that the person I give it to needs to look. But if it's becoming a performance issue, then I'll try to move it, back. So I'll put it in prep then, and then it's in an extract, and then it should run faster in desktop.
Cool. Thank you for that. So I think we'll wrap everything up there. So thank you so much, Britt. It's another great presentation. And I think this has been a really interesting session. So if you've been attending and benefited from this session, then please share it wider once it is up on the YouTube channel, and that link will be shared with you. Before we go, I can announce some winners of the book. So hopefully my screen is being shared, but here are our 5 winners of the Tableau Prep up and running. So if you see your name on that list, I will get in contact with you to get some details of how we can either get the ebook to you or deliver a physical copy. But otherwise, I'd like to say thank you to Carl, Britt, and Sarah for joining us today and giving some really interesting talks. Again, if you want to connect with me, there are my details at the bottom. We try to do these sessions roughly every 2 months, so I would keep an eye on November for the next session. And if you're interested in speaking at one of these, or you know someone that would be interested, then please reach out to me, because we're always looking for new speakers. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your days, and thank you for joining.
Thanks for hosting, Jack.
Thanks.